More importantly, when you come to those junctions in the road, you'll never know which way to go because you're just kind of living, being blown by the wind.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Tiff and Tony Show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode with Tiff and Tony. Tony, hello. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you. I'm doing well. This morning I decided I needed to shift my office around, so I moved the camera angle and did some messing around. So
I can tell you look like you're in a whole new space.
Right. It feels like I needed a spring clean.
Well, let's get right into our topic of the day. I know we prefaced this a little bit last week when we talked about how we can discern whether a challenge we're facing is a roadblock or a hurdle that we just need to overcome. So if you want to dive into that, go back and check that out first. It does set you up really well for today, but you don't have to watch that one to dive in today. Today, we're talking about values. Basically why they're important and how, or a tool that you can use to start creating and maybe putting words to some values that you want in your life. And maybe you already have these values, but you haven't intentionally written them down. Most of us do live by an internal value system, but we don't always know how to verbalize them or tangibly recognize them as, oh, this is a value that I want in my life, which can in turn help you make those decisions, especially the big ones, because it can lead and guide you towards those bigger goals that you have. So Tony, why do you think values are important? And then I want you to introduce this tool to help us create our values.
We talked about kind of the roadblocks and the dead ends last week, right? And roadblocks can appear to be dead ends. And if you haven't got that internal compass by which to live, then you'll never decide what's a dead end and what's a roadblock. More importantly, when you come to those junctions in the road, you'll never know which way to go because you're just kind of living, being blown by the wind. If you've got an internal compass that guides and directs you, then you can make decisions based on what's really important to you. And the whole idea of understanding these values is it kind of it's that thing that we can use to say, I'm going to go that way because that aligns with my values. And you're right, a lot of people have values. They may not even know it, but few people take the time to really tap into them and then really align their life with these values. For instance, I know one of my big values is growth, right? I love the idea of growing, developing, learning. They're all in alignment. So I find myself stepping into situations that will teach me and help me grow. I will quickly step away from those situations that close me down and don't allow me an opportunity to grow and develop. And I can also make decisions on the people I will let into my life on that realm as well. If you're actually going to shoot me down and cut me down and not allow me to grow and develop, then I'm going to distance myself from you because you're not healthy for me as a person. So another value I have, which those around me will attest to, is passion. I'm a passionate person. And so again, I will step into those projects that require a lot of passion, and I will be attracted to passionate people. And so it actually helps to know and understand why these values, what values you have, and why they're in there, because then you can understand the decisions you make.
I love that you ended there, because that's one of the things I love about this is when you really dive into, okay, what are my values? You not only start to build this kind of pathway for your life, but you learn so much about yourself. It forces you to do inner work, and that in and of itself is a growth process. And that is so much of what we talk about here on the Tiff and Tony Show. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the tool that can help us dial in our values a little bit more?
Sure. It's simply a document, and we'll include this. It's PDF. We'll include it in the show notes. And it lists 114 values. There are more out there. This started off as a 4-page document with 400 and some odd values to it. So I pared it down. So this is you're not limited to these 114. And the concept is really simple. You go through the values and you underline or highlight in some way the values that you believe you have or the values you would like to have, right? And so there's a value in here. It's 111, volunteering. That's not a value I have per se, but it could be one that I want to work my way into. I'd like to do more volunteering. So I could underline that. And so ultimately I should have, out of 114, somewhere between 20 and 50 values that are highlighted or marked on this document. And then what I'll do, out of all of the ones that I've highlighted or underlined, I'll then go through and pick my top 10, my absolute top 10. Which of these are my top 10 values that I'm going to go, yep, I know that I want those values. And so honesty is in here, which would be one of mine. Integrity, joy, kindness would be one of mine. And so I'd write them out. And there's actually a page. There's actually a page here where you can see the written values. Now you've got your top 10. What you're going to do there, from your top 10, you're going to highlight your top 5. This actually gets challenging because now you've got to pick from 10. What are your top 5? And when you feel comfortable that you've got your top 5, you're going to write out your top 3 from that list of 5. So now you've got to pick 3, which is, again, it may seem simple, but when you're choosing between these things, it's actually hard sometimes to make that choice. So the way to choose is to say, okay, if I'm going to pick, I don't know, sympathy or teamwork, which one has to go? If it has to go, which one has to go? I'm going to get rid of sympathy and keep teamwork. Okay, so between teamwork and trustworthiness, which one has to go? And then that's how you can pull them down. You really want to end up with your top 3 values. That's the thing that you want. So mine is definitely passion. I interchange passion and dedication. I love those two kind of together. They lump in my top 3. Perseverance is in my top 3, and my other one in there is growth. That will always be in my top 3. So you just heard my top 4 effectively, but one kind of bounces in and out.
This does sound like a challenging process. I know for me, so my birthday was a few months ago, and one of the things I wanted to do was literally write out, what are my values? I want to be someone who really lives by these values that are tangible to me. I know I've been a person that appreciates them. So I wrote down, I probably had like 15. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a little overwhelming. It's so many, but it was so hard to narrow them down. What kind of helped is recognizing some that were really similar. Like you had mentioned earlier, 2 that are really similar that you kind of come back and forth with. So that really helped me narrow them down. Like, okay, these are really similar. This one's maybe a little bit more of like an overarching value or idea I have. So I kept that one and got rid of the other one. So I was able to get it down to, I think, like 10. I don't know how I would get it down to 3. So that'll be a challenge for me. This is such a good way to get to know yourself and give yourself some guidelines, basically, for you to live by. It helps you make decisions. Like Tony said, it can help you decide which people to invest deeper connections and relationships with, because we do encounter people all day, every day. We encounter opportunities all day, every day, potentially. And sometimes it can be really overwhelming to know which direction to take, which friendships to invest in, things like that. And so this is such a practical and good way to help us navigate through life. And like we talked about last week, it can really help you when you're facing a specific challenge to know which direction to take to overcome that challenge.
And I'm going to put in a warning here. And it's a warning I give everyone. Don't put a value that you think you should have in there. I'm married. I have 3 children, 1 grown up in England, 2 here in the US. And I always sit there and go, well, I should have family as a value of mine. And it's in my top 10. But really, if I'm going to be real and honest with myself, it's not one of my top 3. I'm very passionate. I'm dedicated. I love to grow, right? All of these values are at the top of my list. And so if I'm going to be genuine with myself and really be real and live an authentic life, then I've got to be real with the decisions I make, with the values that are in there. And so family is probably my fourth or fifth value in there, but it's not my top 3.
Agreed. And honestly, you can apply that to any area of your life. Don't do things because you think you should do it or someone else tells you should do it. You still need to decide for yourself, what is important to me? What is a good move for me that can also potentially benefit those around me? So thank you so much for pointing that out. Be honest with yourself and choose the values that are true to you, because it doesn't help you or anyone else if you're trying to do things because you should. That doesn't mean that you don't have to choose values that you want to become. That's okay. But it's that should part and that pressure part of feeling like you need to meet some expectation that's unrealistic. But definitely choose values that you know you're already living out and or the person that you want to grow into.
There's our challenge to you this week. Fill out the values list that included in this list. Find your top 3. Let us know what they are. Here's something else that we're going to talk about next week. We just touched on it, fitting in. We all work so hard to fit in that we fail to stand out. And that can stop us from really reaching our fullest potential. We'll talk about that next week.
Yes. Well, stay tuned. We'll see you all next week and have a good day. Bye, Tony.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining Tony and me in this week's episode of the Tiff and Tony Show. We hope you feel encouraged and motivated to keep growing with us. If you like what we do here at PureGame, one of the best ways you can support us is by liking and sharing this video with your friends on social media. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel using the button directly below this video on YouTube, and you can donate at our website, www.thepuregame.org. And with that, we'll see you right back here next week.